Hey there. So it's November 3rd, um, 2025. It's a Monday, and this is my Vaniversary day. My 1 year Vaniversary, and it was either the 3rd or the 2nd of November of last year when I moved into the van. I can't remember the exact date, but it was one of these couple of days, so I'm just going with today. And it was a Monday though. And so I wanted to do a video on that and just kind of wrap up and reflect on 1 year in the van. For those of you who've been following, I haven't really been in the van the whole time, the whole year, from February to February, March to April, through April and some of May. I was staying at a friend's apartment. I had the use of his apartment all the way through August, but I was really there pretty much full time for those 3 to 4 months. Although there were times even within that period of time where I was out in the van. There was at least one time where I was out for about a week or so, where I was out in the van, and also some weekends I was out as well. And then starting in about May, I started venturing out back into the van again, and for basically all of summer I was in the van most of the time, although there were some times in there where I was back at the apartment. There might have been a week or so stretch where I was back in the apartment, or some random days here and there. But other than that, I have been in the van the rest of the time. And so what are my thoughts? What are my reflections on that? And by the way, I'm really kind of still considering that full year to be all of it, falling into van life, because it's kind of like all part of what I'm doing here, where I moved out of an apartment and haven't paid rent in a year. And it's all been kind of the part of the process where I was essentially, it really wasn't my own place when I was staying at my friend's place. It was kind of like glorified couch sitting, or couch surfing. But in any case, my world has definitely revolved around the van for a full year, and all of my possessions and everything that my day-to-day things that I live with have always been contained within the van since then. I do have a storage space that I do time to time go back to and pull things out of, or exchange, put things back into storage, pull things out. But basically what I'm rolling with on a day-to-day basis is contained here in the van. So it's very much centered around the van and has been for this past year. And yet I'm still feel like I'm still trying to get used to this lifestyle. It still feels very new to me in a lot of ways. And I would say also that the past 2 months, it's definitely felt different since I haven't had access to the apartment, starting at the beginning of September. It's definitely not having that to kind of in my back pocket. If I needed to go back to a Sticks and Bricks, I had access to that place. And I don't have that anymore, and I haven't for the past 2 months. So this past 2 months, in a kind of way, it's been like a reintroduction to full-time van life, even though I was basically full-time for pretty much the whole summer. But this is a little bit different because of the weather changing. And also, for the summer, I was working, most of the time I was working remotely at my current job. But I've been basically called back into the office. So for the past couple months, I've also been going back into the office, which means that I'm centered in and around the city for work, which I wasn't in the summer. I was traveling a lot. I was camping a lot, mostly. I was in wow, that's loud. I was in either remote locations or other places that were near but not in the city. So I did a lot of that during the summer. So it's kind of a different thing now that fall is here, and so I'm kind of readjusting to. It's very much similar to how it was when I first moved into the van a year ago, with the weather and with working on site and being full-time in the van with no kind of fallback onto a Sticks and Bricks location. And so in those terms, I would say I'm definitely in a better place because I've figured out some things, figured out some routines, found some places that I feel generally safer. For about the past week or so, I've been this is kind of a newer development. I've been staying in West Seattle. You can't really see because of the it's too bright out there to pick up on camera. I guess you can a little bit to pick up on camera, but that is I'm on El-Kai Beach, and that's Puget Sound or Elliott Bay right out there. I guess you would call that Puget Sound. And this place has been working out really well for me. It's good for my commute is better than anything that I've really done, that I've really found yet for work. And at least getting home from work in the evening is really easy, and I don't have to take any freeways, and traffic really isn't that bad either. So I can get over here within a half an hour after leaving work, and that's awesome. And I can usually find a spot and where I'm staying is kind of at the end of a road. There's like a it isn't a dead end road, but it kind of is like that, because at the end of this part of the road, it goes into local traffic only. And so there isn't a whole lot of traffic, especially at this end of the road. And so it's generally pretty quiet, especially at night. And even in the mornings on weekdays, this morning was very peaceful. I did notice, I mean, it's actually really nice right now. It's about 1 o'clock and in the afternoon, and it's very peaceful right now. I do have to get moving soon because I'm out of groceries, and I have other things to attend to before I'm going back into work tomorrow. I need to do laundry, and I need to get groceries, and I just have some general running around town to do that I really would love to just like stay here for the rest of the day and just chill and have an easy downtime kind of a day in the van. But I do have to get rolling. But I did actually find that yesterday on Sunday it turned into a nice day. Actually, most of the day yesterday was pretty nice, and we had sun. And after a crazy storm, rain and wind, an atmospheric river, the weekend was pretty rough. Well, Friday into Saturday morning was pretty rough. But then it was just like, really beautiful day. It turned into a really beautiful day yesterday and Sunday, and this place was kind of crazy. There was a lot of people here, a lot of traffic. It was really hard for me to relax, and I was really tired because I had been to like a Halloween party the night before, and I was up late, and I was very tired yesterday. And so that's something for me to keep in mind, is on really nice days, I'm probably not gonna be super excited about being here on a weekend on a really nice day. But it's perfect right now. There's really not that many people here, and it's quiet and chill and cozy. And but it was actually, there is some weather here that can get crazy. And last night was like it was very windy, and it was coming out of the north, coming right directly off the water, and it was crazy waves, very loud. I could hear it all night, and the wind, although not as bad as some of the windstorms we've recently had, it was just kind of constant, and it was just coming, and so the van was very drafty, and so, but I slept really well. I had all of my stuff and my covers and everything in my sleeping bag, and I made it through okay, and got a lot of much needed rest. So anyway, those are kind of the specifics of where I am, like right at this moment in time. But it is really wonderful that I have found this place. And I also feel safe here, relatively safe here, compared to some other places I've stayed. And also, there's also a YMCA nearby, which I don't always get in other places that I stay, at least when I'm setting myself up for work in the morning. If I want to hit a gym in the morning, usually it's Planet Fitness, but this has got one that I can go to in the morning. And Ys are better. I do have a Y membership and a Planet Fitness membership, but Ys are really good. They're just better. I just think they're better than Planet Fitness. They offer more things. Planet Fitness is a little bit more pared down. And so I also have that. I have the Y as a resource. And there are grocery stores where I'm heading now. There's a few different sort of, I'm not even sure. I don't really know West Seattle all that well, to be honest, even though I've lived in Seattle for about 30 years almost. This is a part of town that I just did not get over to very often. So, but there is a sort of downtown center or multiple centers. That's what haven't really figured out entirely yet, how they all connect, but there is a sort of central area that I've gone to a couple times now, where there's a Metropolitan Market, a really good grocery store. I was very impressed by that, where they have good healthy food that you can get, and there's also a laundromat there, which is also good, and I also have to go there today as well. Although parking is not so great for that laundromat, and it's kind of raining a little bit, so I'm not sure I'm going to pull that off. But anyway, I am kind of narrowly focusing on this specific new place that I've found that works out to stay. But yeah, getting back to the main thing of my year in review, my van life year in review. I've gotten a lot of things done, like better dialed into the van. My clothing organization is better. Compared to when I first moved into the van, it's like my organization is much better. I did make a video of those early days in the van, and my very first day in the van, which I should mention, I did want to talk about the weather. Maybe I'll come back to the weather, but my very first day in the van, I was loaded down. All of the stuff that I had that I thought I was going to want and need in the van, it was all piled up in here, and you could not move. You could barely move anywhere inside the van. It was piled up on the bed, piled up on this living space here. And I was so overwhelmed. I was like, how in the world am I going to be able to bring all these things with me? These are the things that I feel like I need, that I want to have with me in the van. And yet there's absolutely no room in here for me to even move. And it felt ridiculous. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And I was really concerned about it, but I went to my storage space. I pulled things out, reorganized. Some of the things I figured out I didn't need right away. Even within that first week or two, there were even more things that I was like, yeah, I don't really need this. And so I was able to come up with some systems of organization that made it livable and doable. And so that was a big win. I bought some crates, these things from you can see here, I got a handful of these wooden crates that I got at Lowe's that really helped organize like my food storage and some other storage, and I made it workable, made it doable. And then later in the summer, I finally got sick and tired of all of my clothes just getting thrown into the back, piled up on top of each other, and really really great organization, and hard to figure out a system of organizing those. But I went to IKEA and I got a whole bunch of different storage and clothing storage things and other different storage things, and so my storage is much better, though still not totally ideal. But the back part of the van is better. Let's see. Some of the things I've gotten really dialed in, which is like my electronics, and I have at least three different types of activities that I do that involve a lot of cords and setup and power. And I do, one of those is retro gaming that I do, and that involves a Raspberry Pi, about this big device. It's like a small computer that I have a bunch of that I can run emulations of old video game consoles and computers, and also stores a bunch of ROM files, which are the games that I play. And I have a monitor here, and so I have all of that very well figured out in terms of power strips and connection sources, and I leave things plugged in and very accessible to like outlets, so that, and then I have them in the back of my desk, like the cords aren't like out anywhere, but just the ends are kind of, I can grab the ends, hook up my device. My device also, the connection to the monitor, I can hook that up to the Pi, and I also have like a bag that I found at a retro video game store that holds all of my it's like an Xbox bag, I think, that's supposed to hold an actual console, but I found it to be very useful for all of my like controllers and the Pi device itself, and some cables and things that I can store in there. So that's a great thing. I keep it under my bed. I can pull that out, or I have it, I just have it out even if I'm using it. It's very easy to set up and does not require a lot of power. It's one thing about this monitor that I have now. I had a different one before that I still have, but I swapped in this newer model, and it's very power effective. It does not take a lot of power at all, and neither does the Pi device. So I can play on that, and does not require a lot of power. And I actually have two power sources. I have two lithium-ion batteries underneath the bed that I can, and a power inverter that I can run that have extension cords running, and I can charge those batteries off of a DC to DC converter. I can run my engine and charge those batteries, and I also have a flexible solar panel, portable, that I can also charge the batteries with a charge controller in the back. And I used to have solar on the roof, and I still do, but it doesn't work. So that's something that's going to be a purchase hopefully soon that I can do. And I have to figure out, do I want to continue with flexible solar panels, which I have on the roof, but that's my second solar panel that I've had on the roof, and both of them have fried out and don't work. And they're these inexpensive panels that I bought from China, and now both of them have fried and haven't even gotten me through a full year of use. So, well, the other one was longer because I had it before I moved into the van and was using it for I want to say a year, maybe. I'm not even exactly sure how long that was. But in any case, neither one has lasted very long at all. And so And I have to decide whether I want to go with flexible again, or do I want to get a, what are they called? Flexible versus, I don't know, the standard, what the heck are they called? Rigid solar panel. With which I would need a rack, some kind of rack mounting setup. And I keep kind of procrastinating making a decision on which way I want to go, and if so, what am I actually going to buy if I go with the rigid model. And we're now into winter, so solar, it's probably not actually critical that I get those panels now, because I live in Seattle, or I'm based mostly out of Seattle, so I'm not getting a whole lot of sun. But when we do get it, it's like I would like to take advantage of it. And you should actually be able to draw energy even on a day when there isn't sun. You still should be able to get a little bit off of the panels, which would be nice to be able to keep things topped off. And my other power source is an EcoFlow, like a power pack, and which is really great. I'm really satisfied with it. And I can run everything off of that too. It has a built-in inverter, and all I really have to do is switch out an extension cord. If I want to run most of my electronic things off of that, I can just change and plug in, just change one connection point with an extension cable, and all of the same extension cables are all still in place. So I just have to make that one change if I want to run off the EcoFlow. I can also charge the EcoFlow off of my portable panel, solar panel, or I can also charge it off the engine. But also what's great about it is that I can, which I did today, I do almost every day, especially in these colder months, is that I take it with me. I went to a coffee shop, and I can charge it with an AC power cord, and just charge it off an AC outlet, AC/DC. And oh no, it is AC. And yeah, and that charges up really quickly, and I'm running a refrigerator off of that, which is the main power consumption of my thing. What draws the most power. I have run into problems with that over the past year, that there'll be a lot of times when I run out of power, and I can run it off of either the EcoFlow or my house batteries. House batteries, I have to use an inverter, and it's a 12-volt fridge, but I haven't really figured out how to be able to actually run it off my 12-volt system without using an inverter. And that's annoying because I think it's not as effective as far as the power energy use. The EcoFlow is great, but there's a lot of times when it'll run down and I don't have power and I don't have access to recharge it without driving. And so I've let things go. If it's already a cold day and I'm not in a van, that's not such a big problem, because I typically run my fridge at around 44 degrees or so. And if it gets up to about 50 or 55, I'm not freaking out for, a period of time. But I have been finding that it's hard for me because that happens often enough, that I have been finding it's difficult for me to be able to actually keep perishable items for very long if I don't use them right away. And that has been annoying, because vegetables go bad, it starts to they kind of start to decompose and break down and then water, and then I have leaks and it smells bad, and it's been an ongoing problem for me. And even things like salsa that I keep in there will go bad really, really quickly. And so I've been wasting a lot of food, and that's been a frustration of mine. So trying to keep that running all the time, and trying to make sure I use the perishable items I have in there. That's been a bit of a tricky thing. I was talking about, I got a little sidetracked. I mean, that is part of the electrical system, but I was more thinking of the more entertainment that I have. The other thing, I said there were three main things that I use aside from the refrigerator. There is lights and a fan, but those are hooked up into my house batteries, my 12-volt system entirely. But here I'm talking about sort of my, I would say, sort of quality of life enhancements, and there's three of them in terms of the power usage, and I mentioned my video games. So the other one is my sort of TV setup, and what I use for that is I have a projector, and I'm able to project it onto any surface in the van, but I specifically have I use this front part, and I put this white corrugated plastic up here that I hang from this. I'm not going to show you. If you've been following, you'll see it. I don't know. I like the camera angle, and I don't want to mess with it right now. But I project it out here. I have some track right here. Maybe I should show that. I have this track that I came up with, and I did that this past spring, and I have a mounting device here that I am able to mount the projector to run sort of upside down, and it will flip the image for me automatically. And I also, this is another thing where I have the cabling already kind of just really in place, and these come down to hook into a power strip. I was saying extension cable, power strip. I have power strips that are kind of laying behind the desk, so out of sight. But these cables are hooked up, so all I have to do is to screw on, pull the projector out, screw it on, and the cable's already there. I plug them in. And the other thing that I have is I use as the source of for the projector is an Apple TV that I run, and then I can use an Apple TV. I use the Apple TV for the Wi-Fi. My phone has a hotspot, so I can get internet that way. If I'm in range, if I'm in cell range, and I have a good signal, strong enough signal, I can watch things on Apple TV, which I really like to watch YouTube videos. But what I typically do, though, on a day-to-day basis, rather than set those things up, even though it doesn't necessarily take that long for me to do, I'll just watch it on my phone. I have a late iPhone 16, I believe, like a Pro Max. It's like one of the most, it's very current, and it's big, so I can see a lot on it. So I watch my YouTube videos typically just on the phone. But I have that option if I want. What I typically use it for is for games. I like to watch college football. That's the biggest sport that I like to watch. Sometimes other games could be college basketball or a baseball game or like a NFL game. I will sometimes tune in time to time on some games like that. So it's great for that because I can stream games and project it on a projector. It's just like having a TV. It's big enough and it works out in here really well, actually. It's a small space, but I've figured out a way to make it work. And then in terms of like cell streaming, I have a cell booster actually, which works pretty good if I can get at least a bar of service somewhere. The cell booster is great, and I can also work. That's another thing, is I can work remotely, and I probably should have included that in the sort of electronics load type of thing. Charging the laptops can take a good amount of energy, actually. My older MacBook is kind of a hog. I have a newer Lenovo for Windows that I use for work, and that one's it's a lot more power efficient. So the third thing that I do, probably the most important thing, I probably should have started with this. This was the thing that was the most important thing for me to have in the van build, is a keyboard. I have a keyboard here. As you can see, this thing pulls out. I kind of need two hands to do it because it's kind of locked there. But this is on a drawer that pulls out on it, and that's another thing that I can hook up. I typically hook that up to my Mac, and again, it's one of these things where the setup is not that difficult, because all of the stuff, the power cords and everything are already hooked up, and all I have to do is just grab the end of it, which is kind of like sitting out, like a little slightly tucked away, but I can grab it on top of the desk, and everything's pretty much hooked up already. I just have to make a couple of connections and I'm off and running. So that's great because I'm a musician and I can play. It's really important for me to be able to play keyboards, even though I'm more of a guitar player, but it really helps me for songwriting and other types of audio productions I might be involved in. So that's the one kind of shining example of this van build. My favorite thing about the build was being able to get that into the build. So those are some main things that I've been doing and have worked out really well, actually. Being able to watch games has worked out really well for the most part. I did have this past fall, the first time I tried to watch a game in the van was actually I had kind of a bad experience because I was running out of power, and I was also had to run my cell booster too, which runs off of a 12-volt system, and I was really low on power. I had to keep restarting the engine, and I would have to move the EcoFlow to the front in order to charge off of the cigarette lighter, and so it was just this. And the game ended up. It was a really good game. It was really intense back and forth, and then it ended up going into overtime. And it's a college football game, and so it was actually very stressful trying to keep that game on, and I had the place tore up with just different cables and cords and everything running all over the place, trying to keep this game on, and going back and forth between my house system and the EcoFlow, and charging each of those things. My charge system on the house battery, the DC to DC charger, wasn't really working properly. And I actually, that's a fix that I did towards the end of summer, while the weather was still nice. That was something that I was able to do, was able to fix that, because I wasn't using the right kind of fuse / circuit breaker setup. But I got the correct fuse and rated correctly, so that now I can actually charge the house batteries while I drive. For a time, I wasn't able to do that. That system wasn't really working. So, and I didn't have solar, unless I had the flexible, the portable system out. I couldn't charge my house battery, so that was frustrating. But now I can, and I got that fixed, and I got that figured out. Which the DC to DC charger I didn't even have when I first moved into the van. There is a video on that. I have to go back and edit all that video together. That was a huge installation and about a 2-day job, but I finally got that working right, and now it's really working the way it's supposed to work. And that's only been for the past couple of months if I had that working. But before, trying to watch that game, it wasn't working, and so I came up with, ultimately I got that part, power charging, figured out. And then I also got a long cable, so that I can leave the EcoFlow here, because anything plugged into it, if I'm trying to watch a game, I don't want to have to unplug, take the EcoFlow, move it to the front, run my engine to charge it if I have to. I can actually, now I have an extension that is a, what is it exactly? It's just, I think it's just an XT60 extension cable that I can run from the front, and I can leave the EcoFlow here if I need to. And it's also good when I drive, because I don't have to move the EcoFlow, just stay where it lives, right here. Let's see, where can you see this right here? It just lives there when it's in the van. It doesn't have to move unless I have to take it out like I did this morning to charge it up off of an AC outlet. But other than that, I leave it there at all times. I charge it at work as well. That's the other place. So every day, like the days I go into work, I take it in with me, charge it up in the morning. But I can use that extension, and I can just charge off of the cigarette lighter and run the engine, or when I drive, preferably when I drive. So that's good. That's in place. And then I kind of rigged up some further extension cabling that made it real easy for me to just change one connection point when I want to switch systems for my basically for my inverter, whether I want the EcoFlow inverter or the one on my 12-volt system. And I just have one extension cable that I unplug and take another one and plug that in. Then I'm on the EcoFlow or the 12-volt system. So that's it. I don't have. So the next time I tried to watch a game, it was very easy and very smooth, and I didn't run out of power. I was pretty topped off on both house batteries and EcoFlow, so I got to the game with no problem. And so that was something that's gotten a lot better, is that I can, and also the cabling and all that stuff. That was something I did over, when was that? Probably back in the spring, early summer-ish, when I did that. So, because I was finding it really difficult to set things up, pull them out, set things up. It was like I just didn't want to do it, and the cables, it was just stuff everywhere in the way. But this is a really good system now that I have that makes, for any of those kind of 3 different activities that I do in the van pretty relatively easy to set up and take down and not have things all in the way and cords all over the place. So I'm really proud that I was able to figure that out, and I'm able to entertain myself for hours inside the van and with one of those 3 activities. So it's great for a rainy day such as today for being inside the van. Now, I will say that the space inside the van is still small. I feel like I've optimized it about as well as can be for my uses, but if I have to spend any kind of significant amount of time inside the van, I have to admit it is not, it's kind of depressing. I do have to admit that. This past weekend, in fact, the last 2 weekends actually, 2 weekends ago, I was over at Bainbridge for about 5 nights. I was over there for a while, but on the weekend we had these crazy windstorms that came through, where it was winds up around like 45, 50 miles an hour winds. And I just had to and it did rain too, and I did have to just hunker down in the van for like a couple of days. I had spent a lot of time inside the van. And then this past weekend as well, mostly it was probably all day. It's kind of Thursday and Friday night, and Saturday morning, where I was in the van pretty much the whole time because it was raining so hard. And I just had no real desire to go outside. I was inside the van, and I spent a whole day, I think Friday, I spent almost pretty much the whole entire day inside the van. And that can be that can get to you. That can really get to you. And the space is small. And I'm constantly kind of having to rearrange things and set things up in a couple of different configurations based on what I'm doing, based on what activity I'm engaged in. And that can be kind of annoying, and just it's so confined. It's such a small space. I can't stand up in here at all. Especially if I want privacy, I have to black out the windows, and that can make it feel even more constricting and less natural light coming inside. And it can be very depressing is the word, I guess, and it sort of it gradually kind of eats away at you. And that's something that I feel like I have to be very cognizant of, and just watching, just monitoring it as I'm back into the colder months and back into the fall, when I am going to be having to spend more time inside the van. I'm just kind of monitoring how I'm feeling about things. You know, is this still a viable lifestyle for me? What changes can I make? How can I make things better? Or do I need to go back to living in an apartment again? Sometimes I do miss it. I have been missing it at times lately, just to be able to just get up and move around. Like a lot of these inside activities that I've kind of set up the van for are great and wonderful, and sometimes I don't mind being inside the van to do them, but it is still a little bit frustrating to feel so constricted in this small space. I am a very kind of inside introverted kind of person, so in a lot of ways I'm kind of geared for this kind of a lifestyle in some ways, but I also feel like even for me, it's pushing the limits of what I'm comfortable with, I think. And there are definitely times when I wish I had just my own space to move and walk around in, and also just to be private, because it's another thing that I'm still having a little bit of trouble at times living with, is it's kind of feeling a little bit exposed. Like I'm out, anybody walking around or walking past can see me. There's some houses over here on this side of the road. It's not exactly the most necessarily private thing, and I'm a very private person, and so although this is actually not that bad, this is actually pretty good for as much time as I've spent being parked here. By and large, people aren't really paying that much attention to you. But it still can be an issue sometimes, and it kind of does grate on my nerves a little bit as a highly sensitive person. Being so close and exposed to being in a public space with things going on around me and noises and people and activity, that can really get to me sometimes, when I really just, like yesterday, I really just needed some time alone where I can just be in my space and have walls around me in a protected, safe, quiet, comfortable environment for me to like rest and recharge my batteries. And there are times when I feel like I really need that, and it's hard for me to get it. So trying to find the right balance of those things, it did work out last night, and I knew it would as soon as like the sun went down and it started getting dark. People left. It was Sunday night. People went back home, and it was quiet here at night. And I was able to just hunker down in the van and get some good rest. So as long as I can kind of compensate in places like that, it goes some way to making me feel better about rest and recovery, which is really important to me, especially as I'm a little bit older and now into middle age and into my 50s. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that I wanted to say in reflection. Those were more like van build type things, I guess, that I was reflecting on, and sort of ways that I've grown and changed and developed different solutions and strategies for different things that I wanted to do to kind of improve like quality of life in the van. And I think I've really done pretty well in terms of the van build things as far as optimizing the space. But I still do come up against some of these things in terms of it being such a small space. But I will say as far as being in a van, I'm not interested in changing to a different van. This is my van. This is my home. I'm very much committed to being in this particular space in this place. I'm definitely not interested. I really don't want something bigger, because I really like, I wouldn't, being staying in the city as often as I do, I would not want to be in anything bigger than this, because that makes it a challenge to find parking, and just to get around the city in a bigger vehicle is going to be much more challenging. And even for my outdoor recreational world lifestyle, because I am I like hiking and I like camping a lot, and I like to do that as often as I can. So this van is really good for that as well, because There's definitely some back roads that I feel fine taking this on, but I would not want anything any bigger necessarily. Maybe I would go for a high top solution, and I have considered that with this van, is installing a high top, but when you look at the expense of it and the fact that I really like this is like one of my favorite things about the van is the ceiling that I put in here. And I wouldn't want to have to tear all that out and just so that I get more headspace. But maybe down the line, and it's expensive too, but maybe down the line, that's something that I will invest in. I guess that's something that I was probably going to mention, is that it is actually pretty frustrating though, that this is just a regular standard roof. It's not a high top, and I bump my head constantly. And it isn't so much that I bump it on the ceiling, but it's these things that I have in here. It's like the lights, the lighting fixtures that I have. I find like I sort of like spatially, it's like I recognize that there's a ceiling here, and it's sort of like I don't know what it is, but my spatial sort of perception like accounts for that, but it doesn't account for these sort of like these random things that are sticking out. I hit my head on those things constantly, and that is a source of frustration, and it's painful, and it's not good. I probably have put some like little lumps into my head because of that, and that's not any kind of fun. So that is frustrating. And I don't know if that's ever going to change, if I've gotten any better about that or not. Because a lot of times when I'm moving around inside the van, I'm focused on some little task or job that I'm setting something up, or I'm resituating the van in some kind of a way, or I'm trying to get something, I'm trying to access something in it, and I do bump my head on this thing all the time, and this is kind of annoying. That's the little mounting point that I have for my projector. So that's kind of annoying because I bump my head when I'm sitting there. I don't really bump my head on that too hard though, because I'm always pretty much aware that that's there. But yeah, it's one of these sources of frustration. To living in such a confined space. Oh yeah, I was going to mention about weather. When I first got into the van, maybe that's the last thing I'll talk about in this video since it's getting close to an hour, and I do need to get on with the rest of my day. I wasn't expecting to talk this long. When I first moved into the van a year ago, the very first day was an absolute downpour, and we are getting into that again. That is one of the things about, I guess, more reflecting on sort of like it being a year and like being into the same weather and everything that I first experienced full-time van life a year ago. And we've had the last 2 weekends, we've had these huge wind and rainstorms events, including like an atmospheric river, which is something that was happening. I think it was for like my first like week or two. The weather was absolutely horrible, and we had wind and rain events basically almost every day for about my first 2 weeks, and even the first full month was just terrible. It rained a lot, and so that's something that I've been kind of bracing for, and I've already now experienced for the last 2 weekends. I do have actually a leak in the van that I have to fix. The back doors, and I think it's the gasket. And I do have a replacement gasket, but I have to install it still. But it does leak back there, and that's not fun. But I set up a tarp kind of over the things I have stored back there, and that sometimes can help to prevent anything else from getting wet, and then I can just wipe that off with my. I have like one of those microfiber towels that dries really quickly. But yeah, last fall / winter, the weather was one of the things that did break me, and I did break. I had a breakdown. There's a video on it. Just a whole series of events. My first few months were, I came into just a number and a series of challenges that eventually just broke me down. And I had a lot of things going on, and luckily I had my friend help to kind of bail me out, and I was able to have the use of his place, which is why I spent out the rest of the winter in that apartment. So I did not get through a full winter in the van. I got through 3 months of fall / winter before I hit a breaking point, and I did have an out. I did have something to kind of bail me out of my situation in a way and get some relief. So getting through a full fall and winter again this time, I do feel better poised for it. But like I said, it's something that I am monitoring and sort of just, seeing how am I doing? How is my quality of life? And something that I'm just watching. But I do want to continue on with the van life. I do want to keep doing this, even though there are a lot of challenges to it, and it does affect my mood, and I sometimes I can have sort of mini sort of breakdowns. Even that happened to me this weekend. It was other things going on in my life personally, but it was also the fact that I hadn't slept. This just happened the other day, and I was really tired from being up late. This was actually yesterday, and when I'm really tired, I do get really emotional. And I was just like at the coffee shop, and I was just in tears. And the van was part of it. Just what my life is now and what it looks like, and some of the challenges of having just spent a lot of time inside the van was getting to me. But it probably wasn't the main thing, but I think it didn't help. But there were also some other personal things just going on with me, and some things came to a head, and I just got extremely emotional, and I was crying rather profusely. The tears were just coming out. And it was just something that kind of needed to happen, I think. So I'm not saying that was the same thing as happened to me last winter. That was like where I hit a point where I was like, I can't do this van thing anymore. And luckily I was able to kind of get bailed out, but still kind of be able to go back into the van again. So I wasn't actually completely out of the van at that point. So the weather can be, and the cold can also be a challenge. But I do want to cut this off. I think I do want to end this video here soon, so I do need to get moving. But one of the things I would like to do differently this winter is I would like to go down to the desert, and I would like to go down to Quartzsite. I think I would like to check out that Rubber Tramp Rendezvous. It's a huge gathering. I don't know how serious I am about wanting to go there, but I do have this sense of like FOMO every time it comes up every year, and I don't go. And I've been wanting to go. Even before I moved into the van, I did have a van build on this van, and I was spending a lot of time in the van and a lot of road trips and recreating. So the RTR has been on my radar now for a good, I don't even know how long now, at least 5 years, probably longer, ever since I started watching Bob Wells videos. And so it's something that I've always kind of wanted to go to. And so I keep saying last year I wanted to go, and then I said, well, then I'll go next year. And now I'm afraid that I'm just going to keep putting it off. So we'll see. But I would like to, in any case, I would like to somehow get down to the desert this winter, just to kind of break up some of that monotony, that weather, these hard Northwest winters that I do get seriously affected by that seasonal affective disorder. I definitely get that bad. And even for somebody living here in a normal environment of having a sticks and bricks apartment, it's challenging enough, which I can attest to. But adding on top of that, this alternative lifestyle makes it quite a bit more challenging, I would have to say. And it can definitely get on you and get to you. And I feel like that could be alleviated by spending some time in a warmer, sunnier climate for part of the winter. I've been saying I'd really like to go down there for at least a month. Mostly, I mean, for a lot of it, just to make it worthwhile for me to make such a long road trip. But I'm not sure how I'm going to pull that off with work, because work has been wanting me to be on site. And maybe I can work out some kind of arrangement where I'm working remotely, or I'm just taking the full month off and not being paid for a month. All of those things are possible. But I don't think I'm not sure I exactly feel ready necessarily to leave the job in order to be able to do that trip. But I do want to, I would like to, I do need to start working on things to set up a situation where I can work remotely. Not necessarily at this job, but other jobs or other sources of income where I'm working remotely. So I have some ideas for things that I might be able to do, but I haven't really spent a whole lot of time setting those things up. But I started today at least a couple projects that I have in mind that are kind of entrepreneurial, but are not probably going to bring money up front. So there are other things like some gigs and things that I'd like to look into trying to set up, or maybe just some kind of remote, just looking for remote opportunities, whether it be gig work that I can string together, or a more single job like I have now that's able to support me. So those are things that I need to spend time working on, and it is a challenge when I am working to try to set these other things up. but I know now that I really need to focus. And I spent some time today working on some of that stuff, more on the more entrepreneurial side of things. But I do need to get into something that I can set up that has a more of an immediate income stream. So I need to kind of spend some time working on that. Yeah, and there's other things too other aspirations that I have that are creative and artistic and have to do mostly with music, that are ways in which I'd like to expand out into, and that can be money-making opportunities as well. But I think I'm not going to get into that right now. But yeah, it's been a year in the van, and this has just felt like a good time for me to do some reflecting on where I've been and where I'm going, and just wanted to do a video on that. So I think with that, I think I'm going to wrap this up, and yes, my 1 year Vaniversary, and thank you for watching. Aho, Blessings be. Until next time, thank you for watching.